Voters in a number of West Michigan communities have gone to the polls today voting on millages and bonds, and in one specific district, selecting a new state House representative. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster here from the Wood TV live desk. Joining me this afternoon, News 8 political reporter Rick Albin. He's going to tell us a little more on that special election there in the 74th Michigan House District seat. Rick, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you. It's probably instructive to go back and find out why we're having this special election, and it happened because of kind of a cascading list of events in politics. There was a state senator who decided to run for county office, and that happened back in 2020. And so when he left that office, that left a vacancy in the Senate. A member of the House ran in an election and ultimately won the Senate seat. So that left a vacancy. The Senate seat's now filled, but there's vacancy in the House. So that's what we're filling tonight. And so tonight is a general election. This will be for someone who will actually take office. And I know it's a little different because we usually think of the earlier elections in the year as ones that are selecting who's going to be on the ballot. But this is for the actual seat in the 74th District. And the person who wins tonight will serve through the end of the year. So this is that election. You talked about people going to the polls. One of the things I'll be very interested in seeing, two things. One is what the turnout is like, because people aren't used to voting for their representatives, in a May election. And two, how much of that will be absentee ballot? Because we have seen since the inception of no reason absentee, a large percentage, somewhere maybe in the 60th percentile of those ballots coming back before election day. And that means that the campaigning has to start earlier, and you have to be a little more focused, so it kind of changes that dynamic. But here we are with a off schedule, if you will, election. And I don't know what turnout's going to look like, and I don't know what that absentee vote's going to be, but all of that will play in to see how quickly we get a result tonight.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have a couple graphics here to show you. Let's first start with those candidates. We're also going to talk about the breakup of the district itself. But Rick, let's start with the three candidates.
These three candidates, the Democrat is Carol Glanville. She has been on the Granville City Commission. Robert Regan is the Republican. And then you've got Mike Vilanowski, who is a write-in, who was able to certify himself for a write-in on this ballot. So you actually have three choices, and we don't know exactly what it's been looking like out there on the campaign trail. You know, there are 110 House seats, and generally during an election cycle, we get one bite of the apple to talk with folks who are running, and maybe as many as 20 or 22 of them that we cover. But in this particular case, because the campaign has been off cycle, if you will, we really haven't had a lot of focus on this, so it's hard to know. I mean, I've driven through the area, and you can't really gauge by looking at signage, but there's not a lot. And we know that a lot of this has been door to door, and so it'll be interesting to see what the turnout is, as I said before, and exactly where this goes. Now, your other graphic is of the district, right?
Correct.
So this is going to be really important. When you look at where the 74th District is now, it is northern and western Kent County, right? So that goes all the way up to past Rockford, all the way up north of there. Well, that's where the race is being held today. But when you come back in August, and that says November 2022, which is accurate because that'll be the general election, but it'll also be the boundaries for the August primary election. The 84th District is where all of these candidates that we just described, they will all now live in the new 84th. And if you see the new 84th, it is considerably smaller than the current 74th. The new 84th will be essentially from Granville to Walker, and it'll be from a little bit west of Wilson over to US 131 and go up to about 4 Mile. So you lose all that northern area, all that rural area up there that is currently encompasses the 74th. Most of that goes in the 90th. Some of it goes into the 91st District. So whoever wins today, and I should point out that all three of these names, along with a couple of others, are already on the August primary ballot. So whoever wins today will be running again in August, but they'll be running in a considerably different district than they are right now.
Rick, I want to bring those candidates back up there. Talk a little bit about the significance of their role here for the next few months, because it really is only a few months.
About 8 months, less than probably. And you asked me that before we went on the air, and I think it's a really good question, because there would have been a time that I would have told you that they would have very little impact prior to term limits, because you would have had people who had been there for 20 years or however long they had been there, and it would take time to start, learning the ropes. And it still is going to be a pretty steep learning curve for whomever gets elected, but they'll be arriving at a time when the budget is going to be being finalized, or at least that should be the hope, in the next 6-8 weeks. And that may be a little optimistic. It may be maybe 12 weeks, but the whole idea is they're probably not going to have much impact on budget issues. They'll get some committee assignments, but again, it's such a short period of time. They're not going to be really long with experience. They will, of course, be voting. And so they will have a voice to represent the people of the 74th District, which I think we all know is vitally important, that every district has a vote. It's not unusual for there to be vacancies, but I think everybody believes, to the degree possible, there should always be 110 members there and ready to vote on any issue that comes up. And to that end, they will certainly have that responsibility. But I wouldn't expect them to get too deeply involved. And one of the reasons is they're going to get elected. They're going to go presumably later this month. They'll be there all through June, and there are a lot of members that would like to be out of town by the 4th of July. And that would be for a summer recess that would probably last until after, well, it would last until after the August primary and even beyond that. So if you think you got about 8 months, it may be more like 6 months, and maybe a little shorter than that given the summer recess. So there isn't going to be a lot of opportunity to get in real deep, but they will certainly get orientation, and they'll learn, some of the procedures, and they will have that much experience. And as I say, they're all going to be on the ballot again in August, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see there on your screen now, all the results coming in over on woodtv.com. Rick Albin. Rick, one more question for you here. What do you have coming up in the evening shows here for us?
Well, you're talking about today?
Tonight.
We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to talk about this race a little bit, not quite this much in depth, but just talk a little bit again about why it's important and how it will change when we get to the August election. And then later today on another significant development with Roe v. Wade that I know that people have been hearing about and talking about, even though we don't know exactly what those developments are. It certainly has caught the attention of a lot of people. One of them who has already started legal activity here in the state of Michigan to try to be prepared if something happens that strikes down Roe, and that's Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I'll be talking with her later this evening, and we'll have that on our late shows to talk about her take. Obviously, her take is she would like to see it upheld, but if it isn't, she would like to change Michigan's law, which she was passed decades ago and does not permit abortions in the state of Michigan under most circumstances. And so that is going to be a big topic of conversation. And to be sure, it's going to be a big topic of conversation for this coming election, not so much for today, but as we move into August and particularly into November, depending on what happens with that, that could have a big impact on an election cycle that has a really, really big potential to change things in Washington. But could this decision, if it turns out to be such, could that change the dynamics of this midterm election? So I think that's one of the things we'll be following tonight.
Rick Albin, thank you, as always. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a look at the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you around.